The Galactic Council, an all-powerful governing body, loomed over the galaxy like an iron-fisted emperor. Its vast dominion extended over countless star systems, binding civilizations with laws, taxes, and a ruthlessly efficient military presence. The Council's reach was undeniable, its authority unassailable. Across its sprawling empire, planets quaked under the pressure of oppressive decrees, and whispers of rebellion were snuffed out before they could ignite. For centuries, Earth had been one of those planets, an outpost of human civilization under the Council's ever-watchful gaze. Humanity's history under the Council was marked by compliance. When the Council first set its sights on Earth, humanity was in awe of the alien civilizations and technology brought to its doorstep. The Council's terms were clear: surrender resources, obey intergalactic regulations, and accept foreign governance in exchange for limited protection. Humanity, desperate to avoid the catastrophic consequences of resistance, had quietly yielded to every demand. Rich veins of precious minerals were stripped from the planet's crust. Scientific advancements were shared, or rather seized, and Earth's cultural uniqueness began to erode under the weight of universal conformity. Sanctions came regularly. If a minor law was broken, or if quotas fell short, the Council would enforce economic penalties, cutting Earth off from vital trade networks. Humanity endured, tightening belts, finding ways to make do. Even when the Council demanded the territories be ceded for strategic purposes, or when entire regions were taken to establish alien colonies, the people of Earth swallowed their pride and complied. Generations grew up knowing only subservience, a quiet but unyielding patience that kept humanity from breaking into open revolt. To the Council, Earth was nothing more than a young, naive civilization, unworthy of serious concern. Humanity's resilience was seen as simple acquiescence, a confirmation of weakness and dependence. The Council believed that humanity lacked the means and will to resist, mere children compared to the star-spanning cultures they governed. Earth, to them, was a mere resource, a minor player whose existence was to be managed rather than respected. They never imagined humanity could harbor hidden strength or that patience could be anything other than weakness. The internal unrest among Earth's population had simmered for years, growing hotter with each new decree issued by the Galactic Council. On the surface, humanity appeared compliant, but under that fragile facade was a deep and unrelenting frustration. Whispers of discontent echoed in crowded markets and hushed living quarters. The people had grown weary of being seen as insignificant, of toiling endlessly to meet the demands of a distant, indifferent authority. Every resource extracted, every labor hour wasted on Council quotas, every sanction endured left a bitter taste that no amount of forced diplomacy could wash away. Despite Earth's outward obedience, signs of strength began to emerge, hinted at in technological advancements developed under the radar and whispers of unbreakable unity among Earth's people. The youth, restless and ambitious, developed new technologies in secret, combining ingenuity with determination. Engineers and scientists worked tirelessly to strengthen Earth's infrastructure, while military strategists quietly prepared for a day when Earth would no longer bow to its cosmic overlords. These hints of resilience remained hidden, even as the Council grew more demanding, believing Earth to be powerless and easily controlled. Then came the Council's latest edict, a demand that pushed humanity to the edge. Earth was ordered to surrender its remaining energy reserves, a move that would cripple the planet's ability to sustain itself. It was a violation more invasive than any previous command, one that risked leaving entire cities without power and shattering the fragile balance that kept society functioning. The demand was accompanied by a threat. Refusal would mean devastating economic sanctions and an enforced blockade of Earth's already limited trade routes. Humanity's patience had reached its breaking point. No longer could people endure quietly. The time for submission had passed. It was in the Council's grand chamber, a place of solemnity and echoing authority, that Earth's defiance was finally voiced. Earth's lead diplomat, a figure known for his measured words and polite deference, stood before a hall of alien representatives. The air was thick with the usual expectation of compliance. The council members leaned forward, prepared to hear yet another groveling acceptance of their demands. Instead, silence filled the room. The diplomat lifted his head, his voice strong and unwavering, and declared, "This will be our last conversation." The words landed like a physical blow, leaving the chamber stunned. Council members, who had never once imagined that Earth could speak with such finality, exchanged bewildered and indignant glances. Shock rippled through the ranks of the assembled alien delegates. For a moment there was complete disbelief, a refusal to comprehend what had just been said. But as the reality of the statement sank in, the arrogance that had once colored the Council's perception of Earth was shaken. No one had expected resistance. No one had prepared for this. The Council chamber erupted into a storm of disbelief and confusion. Representatives, who had long viewed Earth as nothing more than a compliant and harmless member of the Galactic Order, struggled to process the defiance they had just witnessed. Their disbelief was palpable, underlined by centuries of arrogance and an unshakable confidence in their authority. Earth, in their eyes, had always been the obedient child, a civilization too young and insignificant to mount any real challenge. The idea that humanity could ever stand up to their commands seemed preposterous, almost laughable. Murmurs spread through the assembly, with some members dismissing Earth's statement as a desperate bluff. Council leaders, hardened by years of power and control, clung to the assumption that this was nothing more than a misguided attempt at negotiation. The thought that Earth might truly resist never crossed their minds. Instead, they believed humanity would soon realize its error, crawling back to the negotiating table with the same old deferential tone. The Council decided to respond swiftly, issuing a demand for Earth to provide a formal clarification. They expected an apology, a retreat, and a return to the status quo. But Earth did not respond. Days passed, and then weeks, with no word from humanity. The usual streams of communication fell silent, and diplomatic channels remained closed. The Council's demand hung unanswered, and a sense of unease began to creep into the once confident assembly. This was no longer the predictable pattern of submission they had come to expect. Earth's silence felt deliberate, almost as if it were a weapon wielded with precision. The once assured council members found themselves growing uneasy, sensing a shift they could neither explain nor control. Tension filled the halls of the council's high command as whispers of doubt spread. Military strategists and analysts were called upon to offer explanations, but even they could not fully comprehend Earth's behavior. It was becoming evident that this time was different. Humanity had not returned with frantic excuses or desperate negotiations. The silence itself was unnerving, a sign that Earth was no longer willing to play the role the Council had assigned. The arrogance that had once blinded the Council to the possibility of human defiance began to crack, replaced by a creeping sense of something far more serious. Rumors of the Iron Armada had drifted through the galaxy for years, dismissed as little more than the fanciful tales of conspiracy theorists and Earth loyalists. It was said to be humanity's final defense, a fleet constructed in secret, bristling with technology rivaling that of the Galactic Council. Most dismissed the stories as improbable, a desperate myth concocted to bolster Earth's image in the face of overwhelming oppression. But when the Iron Armada finally appeared, it was no myth. The fleet emerged from the shadows of Earth's protective zone, positioning itself on the borders of Council-controlled territory with precise, deliberate movements. Sleek and formidable, the Armada consisted of warships whose designs were unfamiliar to the Council's analysts. Unlike the patchwork fleets cobbled together from outdated technology that the Council expected from Earth, These ships were silent sentinels, gleaming with advancements clearly developed in secret. Their armor was an alloy never before seen, rumored to be impervious to all but the most powerful Council weaponry. The Council's surveillance networks immediately detected the Armada's emergence, and what they saw shook even the most confident members of the ruling body. Fear and confusion spread like wildfire. Council leaders, who had always dismissed Earth as technologically inferior, now faced a fleet that seemed engineered for pure defense and unyielding strength. The Iron Armada moved with a calm precision that spoke volumes, as if each maneuver had been rehearsed for years. Every ship was strategically placed, forming a defensive perimeter that would make any offensive against Earth costly beyond measure. The Council's arrogance began to waver as they realized that they were dealing with a force far more formidable than they had ever imagined. Intelligence agencies scrambled to make sense of this sudden display of power. Reports surfaced, hinting at decades of secret military development on Earth. Analysts uncovered evidence of unprecedented unity among humanity, a long-term effort to prepare for the moment when endurance would no longer suffice. Years of Council oppression had forged humanity into something stronger, not weaker, and now the product of that resilience was on full display. The Iron Armada, once the stuff of whispered legends, had become a tangible and undeniable threat. Debate erupted among Council members. Some argued that the Armada's existence was a bluff, a strategic front designed to buy Earth more time. Others, however, were not so sure. The sophistication of the fleet suggested otherwise, and reports from nervous commanders along the border painted a picture of unparalleled readiness. Speculation turned to worry as it became clear that humanity's apparent submission had masked a slow, deliberate buildup of power. Earth had played the long game, biding its time until the moment was right. The realization sent shivers through the highest echelons of the Council, forcing them to reconsider their perception of a planet they had long underestimated. The silence from Earth was absolute and unsettling. For years, the Galactic Council had grown accustomed to humanity's frantic diplomacy, the endless stream of petitions, concessions, and compliance. Now, that once familiar flow of communication had gone completely dark. Not a single message emerged from Earth's governing bodies, and diplomatic channels remained ominously silent. The stillness became a weapon of its own, a psychological assault that left the Council reeling. The lack of reaction or response from humanity filled the empty void with an unsettling tension, making even the most seasoned Council members second-guess their assumptions. This silence was not a sign of submission, but a declaration of resolve, and it echoed louder than any spoken words. Each day that passed without communication felt like an unspoken warning. The Iron Armada, stationed in perfect formation, seemed to underline that warning with chilling finality. The Armada's warships moved with a terrifying precision, forming a seamless and impenetrable perimeter around Earth's territory. Any attempt to breach this defensive line would result in a devastating loss, and the Council knew it. Each ship, engineered with both resilience and destructive capability, stood as a testament to humanity's readiness. There was no bravado, no display of force beyond what was necessary, just cold, calculated positioning. The Armada's formation spoke of strategic brilliance, each maneuver deliberately planned to cover weaknesses and maximize defensive strength. The Council's most advanced surveillance drones failed to detect any signs of disarray. Instead, they reported back a grim image of human ships standing like a wall, disciplined and immovable. The realization that an assault would result in catastrophic losses was becoming undeniable. Council strategists, normally confident in their ability to overwhelm any resistance, began to doubt the effectiveness of their overwhelming numbers. Humanity had not only prepared, it had fortified itself with a purpose. Divisions erupted within the Council as fear began to gnaw at their unity. The more hawkish members, driven by pride and the need to maintain authority, demanded an immediate show of force. They insisted that humanity's defiance needed to be crushed swiftly and decisively, lest it inspire other civilizations under the Council's rule to rise up. These members viewed Earth's silence as an insult, a challenge that could not be left unanswered. Warships were readied and ultimatums were drafted, all in the hope of coercing Earth back into submission. But a growing faction within the Council advocated for caution. They argued that this situation was unlike any they had faced before. Humanity's preparations had been meticulous, and the Iron Armada's defensive posture left no room for easy victory. Intelligence reports from their own analysts warned of heavy losses and the risk of triggering a broader conflict. Whispers of humanity's hidden strength, of technological advances forged in secrecy, added to the hesitation. If the Council acted too rashly, they could shatter their illusion of invincibility and provoke widespread rebellion across the galaxy. The debate became heated, with once unified leaders now splintered by fear and uncertainty. Earth's unyielding silence and the Armada's stoic vigilance had done more than prepare for war. They had fractured the very foundation of the Galactic Council's authority, planting seeds of doubt where none had existed before. The Galactic Council, determined to reassert its dominance and silence the growing sense of unease, mobilized an impressive display of firepower. Warships bristling with weaponry and reinforced by the most advanced technologies in the Council's arsenal moved into position near the Iron Armada's boundary. The maneuver was a show of strength meant to intimidate, a tactic the Council had used countless times to crush rebellious spirits. The Council's fleet, a formation of massive and imposing vessels, cast long shadows as they hovered in place, ready to unleash devastation at a moment's notice. It was a calculated effort, designed to make Earth reconsider its defiance. Yet, the Iron Armada did not flinch. Humanity's warships, disciplined and unwavering, remained steadfast in their formation. The Armada's captains made no moves to retaliate or reposition. Instead, they held their ground with an air of unshakable calm. There was no panic, no sign of fear, only a silent and resolute determination. The lack of reaction from Earth's defenders was more unsettling than any aggressive response could have been. The Council's attempt to provoke or intimidate was met with a wall of composed defiance, a clear message that humanity would not be cowed. The psychological impact of this defiance began to ripple through the ranks of the Council's commanders and politicians. The realization that their usual tactics had no effect, that Earth would not be goaded into submission, unsettled them. For the first time, the Council's confidence wavered. Their strategies, so effective in the past, seemed powerless in the face of humanity's unyielding resolve. Doubt crept into the minds of even the most arrogant Council members, who had always believed that power and intimidation were the ultimate tools of control. The silence from Earth continued to echo, a force in its own right. The Council, used to being feared and obeyed without question, found itself facing an opponent whose strength lay not just in advanced technology, but in the unbreakable spirit of its people. The standoff was more than a clash of fleets. It was a battle of wills, and for the first time the Council began to feel the strain. Their illusion of absolute control was fading, replaced by the uncomfortable realization that they had underestimated humanity's quiet, resolute defiance. The Council's pride, once towering and unshakable, began to crumble under the weight of their growing desperation. Each attempt to provoke a reaction from Earth met with unyielding silence, and the authority that had held the galaxy in fear for centuries started to fracture. Tensions within the Council rose to a fever pitch, with heated arguments erupting behind closed doors. Some members, still clinging to the belief in the Council's supremacy, demanded an immediate escalation of military force. They argued that any display of weakness would embolden other civilizations, spelling disaster for the Council's hold on power. Others, however, urged caution, pointing out that Earth's defiance had already exposed the Council's vulnerabilities. The once unified front of the Council was now splintered, divided by fear and bruised egos. Reports from the field only deepened the fractures. News of the Iron Armada's impenetrable defense and humanity's unbreakable resolve left even the most hawkish council members questioning their position. As internal disputes raged, whispers of Earth's defiance spread like wildfire through the galaxy. Other civilizations, long oppressed under the Council's rule, began to take notice. The silence from Earth became a symbol of defiance, a beacon of hope that perhaps the Council was not as invincible as it appeared. Talk of independence and rebellion circulated in the shadows. An oppressed world started to dream of freedom. The Council's military advisors, scrambling for a way to salvage the situation, ran endless simulations. The results were grim. Any offensive against Earth would come at a tremendous cost, with casualty estimates higher than any conflict the Council had ever faced. The simulations revealed that humanity's preparations had been meticulous, its defenses layered and unyielding. Earth's strategic wisdom became painfully clear. An attack would not only weaken the Council militarily, but also shatter its reputation across the galaxy. Fear spread among the Council's ranks as they realized they were facing an adversary who had turned the very foundations of the Council's power against them. In a final attempt to reassert control, the Council announced sweeping economic sanctions against Earth. They aimed to choke humanity's economy, cutting off all interstellar trade and resources. It was a desperate gambit, intended to isolate Earth and force its people into submission. The sanctions were harsher than any imposed before, a final show of power designed to remind humanity of the consequences of defiance. Council propaganda machines worked overtime, declaring that Earth would soon be brought to its knees. But Earth remained silent. The sanctions, intended to break humanity's spirit, instead highlighted its resilience. Earth had prepared for this too. The planet's self-sufficiency and ingenuity became evident as the sanctions failed to cripple its economy. Humanity had invested in renewable resources, developed new technologies, and learned to thrive without the Council's support. The Council's gamble had backfired spectacularly, and the cracks in its authority only widened. Rising dissent became impossible to ignore. Other planets, inspired by Earth's defiance and emboldened by the Council's faltering grip, began to voice their own discontent. Factions openly expressed support for humanity, and whispers of rebellion became louder. The Council, once a monolithic force of control, now faced a galaxy that no longer feared it. The unraveling had begun, and Earth's silent defiance had set the wheels of change in motion. The once mighty Galactic Council, a symbol of unchallenged authority, was now a fractured and crumbling entity. The pressure of Earth's unyielding defiance had driven a wedge between its members, and their unity shattered beyond repair. One by one, representatives began to defect, unwilling to risk their civilizations in a war they now believed unwinnable. Factions formed, each with its own agenda, some seeking to negotiate with Earth, others advocating for reform, and a few still clinging desperately to the old ways of control. The once imposing structure of the Council unraveled as infighting and distrust took root, and the illusion of its omnipotence dissolved. The breaking point came when the Council, recognizing that further aggression would lead only to ruin, was forced to admit defeat. They announced a full retreat, withdrawing their forces from Earth's borders and issuing a formal declaration to halt all hostile actions. It was an unprecedented humiliation, a moment that marked the end of the Council's dominance. Humanity's silence had spoken volumes, and in that silence, the Council had been undone. The Iron Armada, still standing strong and unbroken, became a symbol of victory, a testament to Earth's strategy and resolve. Humanity had faced an empire that believed itself unbeatable and emerged triumphant. The impact of Earth's victory resonated across the galaxy. Civilizations that had once lived under the Council's shadow found new hope. The silence that had been Earth's greatest weapon now became a call to arms for the oppressed. Worlds that had long dreamed of freedom began to rise, inspired by humanity's strength and resilience. Rebellion spread, and the Council's former subjects rallied around Earth as a symbol of defiance. The Iron Armada, with its gleaming warships and disciplined crews, stood not just as a defense, but as a beacon for those yearning for independence. Earth had done more than secure its own freedom. It had ignited a movement. The unbreakable spirit of humanity had shattered the chains of oppression and set the galaxy on a path toward liberation. In the end, it was not Earth's words or weapons that had won the day, but the power of silent, unyielding defiance, a force that even the greatest empire in the galaxy could not overcome.